Well, it wasn't rational behaviour, that's for sure, and self-harm isn't rational behaviour, and it's often a result of many different things. I think it's a very misunderstood issue, self-harm. I've heard mothers and fathers saying it's attention seeking, and that's all it is, which is a very narrow black and white way of looking at what it was. For me, the last thing I wanted was attention. I actually wanted to find out what it was, and I think through the level of frustration and lack of sleep and all sorts of things, that it was an outlet for what was going on in my head. And actually, when I did it, I said in the book, it was a euphoric feeling. It was that release of, I feel amazing. I feel like that felt amazing, and that was not only dangerous to be thinking that way, almost addictive to think like that, to feel that outlet and that release. It was like, oh my God, it was like it built, it was like a crescendo, and then bang. At that point, I was very much aware that this wasn't a behaviour that was going to sustain. You know, that conversation was probably a difficult one to have, but I'm pretty sure I didn't really tell the doctor how bad it was, because we used to have this big mental hospital in Mullingar called St. Norman's, and our running joke was that you're going to end up in St. Norman's, or your mother's in St. Norman's, or your father's. And that was genuinely the only go-to joke we had. So in my head I was like, Jesus, if I actually tell him how bad this is where I'm going to end up. So I kind of said it to him, like, you know, I did this to myself, and I got a bit pissed off. And I mean, to any doctor, he probably was going, yeah, that is just a bit of teenage frustration. And I suppose on one hand it was more my fault for not being a bit more vocal about how bad it was, but I think that shows where the stigma was back then, 15 years ago, that I was like, I'm going to end up in a mental hospital. That's what was going on in my head.